Hey guys, welcome back to the MCU HQ. So today I wanted to do something fun that I haven't done in a while, and there's so much MCU content now, I'll probably end up doing one every like 8 months. But I wanted to do a full MCU Blu-ray Collection video. All however many things there are in the MCU now, just the Blu-ray, the copies I have, briefly talking about each thing. I want to do a full MCU collection of every MCU thing I have, but a lot of it's buried in boxes in the basement right now, or buried behind boxes in the basement. And frankly, I don't want to have to destroy the entire house to dig most of it out. So we're just doing a Blu-ray collection video. I have every MCU Blu-ray next to me. You can probably see some back here. I'm going to break them down here. So let's get to talking. I do keep these in release order. Not chronological order. And I don't like chronological order, but I might get to that in a future video. So, let's talk here. First off, the MCU movie I have 2 copies of. We have the original Iron Man right here. The only reason I actually have a Blu-ray of Iron Man is because my mask case for Iron Man, which I'll grab real fast, that I watched Iron Man most of my life using this copy. But if I crack it open, I don't know if you can see it, but that inner ring right there is like all destroyed. And so I don't watch Iron Man on this guy anymore, but I keep it in the collection because it's just like, it's gorgeous. Just look at that. But yeah, so there's my Iron Man Blu-ray right there. Still the best MCU movie. Video about that coming soon here. God, I love Iron Man so much. Top 5 comic book movie for me. Alright, moving on. I think this might have actually been one of the later additions to the collection. The Incredible Hulk in the slick green Blu-ray case here. I remember finding this at Second and Charles randomly one day. And I was like, I still need that one. Might as well get it now. Incredible Hulk is really underrated in my opinion. I feel like a lot of people hate on Incredible Hulk just because it doesn't feel like it's connected to the MCU. But I mean, that's not really a fair reason because I still think it's a solid movie. It's not amazing, but it's the most underrated MCU movie for sure. It is the black sheep of this franchise. And this is the coolest Hulk we've ever seen on screen. He's been getting nerfed in every movie since 2008, but just Hulk in this movie is that ginormous Green Rage monster he should be. And I hope that someday Marvel figures it out and actually gives us a good Hulk again. They probably won't. I don't know why they decide to reduce him to the joke character. Makes me sad. Then after this, we get one of the MCU's first big screw-ups in my opinion. And that is Iron Man 2. Also, this case isn't that impressive, is it? Kind of boring. Now, Iron Man 2 is a movie that I think has a lot of good ideas that should have been spread across 3 movies, or at least 2 movies, not 1 movie. You know, they try to do the Demon in a Bottle storyline. They got Whiplash, Justin Hammer, War Machine. They got all kinds of stuff going down in this movie, and it feels like there's too much going on. It feels like they never have enough time to do everything. I mean, on the bright side, it did introduce us to Black Widow and War Machine, which is great. But yeah, this movie's not awful. Like, it still has some redeeming qualities in my opinion, but it's still one of my least favorite MCU movies. I think the Mark V suit-up scene is the best Iron Man suit-up in the MCU, and it's a shame that we never got one that came anywhere close to topping that suit-up scene. It was absolutely glorious to behold. Also, the sound of War Machine's guns single-handedly redeemed this movie. Moving on, honestly, an MCU movie I really love a lot more than most people. This is a very unpopular opinion, but the first Thor is the best of the Thor trilogy, in my opinion. This is also the, like, collector's edition case for it. Like, it says Phase 1 on the side. I think this and the next movie we're going to talk about, and then the sequel to said movie, were I think the last 3 that I ended up getting for a long time. I was missing those 3 movies. But no, I really do love the first Thor movie. I think It is really good. It has a great storyline, great characters. I can't remember who wrote that movie, but I want to say he also wrote X-Men First Class, which is like one of the best X-Men movies. So the dude knows his shit. I want him to tackle an MCU X-Men movie when it comes time. That would be awesome. I said in my Thor Ragnarok review, which will be up here in a couple weeks, that I think Thor needed the shift to comedy, but it kind of sounds weird when I phrase it, but I didn't have too much of an issue with the Shakespearean feel of this first one. I think Kenneth Branagh did pretty solid with Thor. That said, I wish he would have put the third leg on the tripod, because they're like, every shot of this movie is a Dutch angle, even shots that don't need to be Dutch angles. But I mean, I don't care. There's so much heart put into this movie. Everyone gives it their all. The music is great. The cinematography is great. Asgard is the most beautiful it has ever looked. But I will say, this case is not good. These like new collector's cases or something that Marvel did, they don't do it for me. But I needed this to complete the collection, so I got it. And hey, we got a slipcover. Slipcovers are cool, right? And this one also introduced us to one-shots. We have The Consultant. This was the first movie with a one-shot, and then its sequel was the last movie with a one-shot. So it started and ended with Thor. I do have a review of all 5 MCU one-shots. I reviewed them in one video. That was a good time. I always enjoy those little films, so go check that video out. I'll link it up there. Next movie was a movie was not too fond of originally. I have come around on it. I know a lot of people really love this movie. Captain America, the First Avenger, not my favorite by a long shot. It's still in kind of the bottom tier of Marvel movies for me, but I have really come around on this movie. I do really like this movie. I think the first half, before Captain America gets the serum, is incredible. I think after he gets the serum, that's what prevents this from being the best Marvel movie. They kind of just montage through World War II. Bucky's death isn't particularly well done. Red Skull isn't that great of a villain. I was never a fan of the action in this movie. I want to say it was Joe Johnston who directed it, though. Yeah, Joe Johnston directed the shit out of this movie, though. It does look really good. And Cap's sacrifice, plot holes aside, and ways he could have gotten out of that, it is such a well done scene, and I think this movie has the best ending of any MCU. Well, I mean, certainly it doesn't have the best ending. I think that title goes to Spider-Man No Way Home, but it has one of the best endings of any MCU movie. It is so cool. It's also like the first movie that doesn't end on a hopeful note, right? Like, Iron Man ends, he's a hero, he's gonna get recruited to the Avengers. At the end of Hulk, he controls his powers. Iron Man 2, pretty much same ending as Iron Man. Thor ends with Thor and Jane split up, but they're both looking for each other, and Thor smiles. But this one ends in a unbelievably sad way of Cap waking up and realizing pretty much his friends are basically dead. Oh, that's always also, that's one of the movies on the rewatch I'm like, I really look forward to rewatching it. Now, the best movie, not second best movie in Phase 1, The Avengers. This is a really good movie. Joss Whedon might be a horrible person, but I'm not gonna let that change my opinion on some of his work. This movie kicks ass. I will say, though, I was watching a video and someone pointed out that like half this movie just takes place on the helicarrier. Like, it's just them sitting on the helicarrier. Still thrilling as hell, though. I think the character thing is interesting in this. Iron Man definitely feels like the main character. I'd say he has the most complete character arc. Then you get characters like Hawkeye and Cap to an extent who are just completely sidelined. Hulk, also, I feel like Joss Whedon did understand how terrifying Hulk is in a way that none of the other directors have. That scene when he hulks out on the helicarrier and he's hunting Black Widow, that is scary. Same with, he punches a Leviathan and stops it dead in its tracks. That's the biggest feat of strength I think we've ever seen in the MCU, and it came from Hulk. I just want this Hulk back. That scene, like the Avengers circling up, is one of the best scenes in the MCU. It is so well done. Just so much about this movie is great. Loki, great villain. The characters, great. they knocked it out of the park. This is a movie that I feel like should not have been as good as it was. And they did it. And then they did it arguably three more times after that. Okay, moving on. That is it for Phase 1. That's it for Phase 1. Now, let's get into Phase 2 here with a movie I think is criminally underrated. Arguably the most underrated MCU movie. Iron Man 3, right there. I don't like that poster though. The best Iron Man 3 poster is the one when he's falling out of the sky and his suit is like burning. That's like one of the best Marvel posters. Why is Pepper like clutching his side? I don't like this. I don't like that case. The little bit on the back of him in his lab with all his suits there, that's cooler than whatever the hell is on the front. But talking about the case aside, I think this has some of the best character writing in the MCU. I think the only real screw-up this movie made is the Mandarin twist, and I know ShangChi fixed the Mandarin, but still, they got Ben friggin' Kingsley. They made him look perfect, and then they just revealed he was an actor. So I didn't like it. But Trevor Slattery makes me laugh, so I guess on some level, that's cool, right? I do wonder what it would have been like if Jon Favreau directed this movie. I always have that in the back of my head. What would Iron Man 3 have been like if Jon Favreau stuck around to finish the trilogy? But hey, I guess we'll never know. On the bright side, he did stay around as Happy, and he's had a very good relationship with Marvel this whole time, so that's nice. But yes, Iron Man 3, solid movie, very underrated. One of my favorite ones to rewatch, actually. Whenever I think about just throwing in a random MCU movie and not just watching all of them, Iron Man 3 always gets shortlisted, as I'm always trying to decide if that's the one I want to rewatch. We'll talk about the other ones I always consider rewatching later. But yeah, Iron Man 3, good time. Next movie. What was up until 2019 the MCU's biggest screw up, Thor: The Dark World. I mean, what can I say about this movie that the internet hasn't already said about this movie? It goes wrong in a lot of places. So they got Alan Taylor from Game of Thrones to direct this movie, so they kind of bring the Game of Thrones flair to the MCU, just on a much more PG-13 level. And I will say, knowing that, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, you get, like, medieval, like, battle things, like that prologue on Svartalfheim, the Siege of Asgard. Those are pretty cool fights. When the action in this movie is the best part of the movie, arguably, I think the opening fight is, like, the movie starts on the highest note, and then it dives off a cliff. But yeah, like, this movie, it does so much wrong. Thor is a boring character. Jane is a boring character. Malekith is the worst villain I've ever seen. The human characters are even more annoying this time around. It does so much wrong, but that also does some things right. This might as well just be called the Loki movie. But, I mean, Frigga's funeral is great. The scene of Thor and Loki when they first get to the Dark World and they're talking, that's cool. Loki's death really works. I think Thor willing to sacrifice himself at the end of the movie, that really works. I think there are a lot of things that are great, a lot of stuff that's really bad though, and that's why it's one of the worst MCU movies. Best part of this movie is the music. Who composed the music for this? Brian Tyler. Friggin' incredible music on this movie. Alright, this was actually, I think, it was in 2018. So, for a while, this was the last MCU movie I needed to complete the collection. That's Captain America: The Winter Soldier. This case is even worse than the one for the first Avenger. But hey, I think this is the last of the little collector case things. Winter Soldier's really good. I mean, come on. I'm not going to sit here and trash Winter Soldier. That's an amazing movie. Bucky was the most terrifying villain we had seen. His theme song kicks all the ass, by the way. It made Cap cool. He went from kind of being a Boy Scout. They did the right thing. The Russos took Captain America and they put him in a spy thriller. Mwah! Great idea. This movie has some cool ass action. The elevator fight is awesome. The highway fight, I think, the fight between Cap and Bucky on the highway, I think might be the best one-on-one fight in the MCU. It's debatable between that and ShangChi versus Wenwu, but it's just a super, super cool fight. It's such a thrilling movie from start to finish. I love almost every second of it. And yes, I have gone on record saying the plot is kickstarted in a really dumb way, because I feel like Nick Fury would never, ever think that Project Insight would be a good idea. But he is. But he does. I don't know. I don't make the rules. I just watch the movies. Now, one of the best MCU movies, I feel like I said that about the last one, Guardians of the Galaxy. The movie I thought would actually be bad. I saw the trailers. I didn't think it looked good. And then I was on an airplane back from, I think it was Canada, and I was like, who cares? I'll watch it. I remember on the way to that trip, though, I had seen someone a few rows ahead of me watching the movie on the airplane, and I was like, parts of it look fun. I might check it out. Plus, it's a Marvel movie. It's in the MCU. When they first announced this movie, I didn't think it was in the MCU. That's also why I didn't care. But I was like, why not? I'll check it out. Then I watched it, and I was upset that I didn't watch it in theaters. This is an absolutely fantastic movie. Some of the best character writing in the MCU. I mean, that is the work of James Gunn for you. He took just these 5 characters no one knows squat about. Well, it's debatable. I feel like people knew who the characters were, like Drax, Gamora, and Rocket. I feel like people knew who they were on their own, but in the context of Guardians of the Galaxy, no one knew who those characters were, and James Gunn made them the most lovable characters we've ever seen, and now they're like fan favorites. No one can wait for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. We're all insanely excited for it. And hey, we might not get Volume 3 this year, but we're getting the holiday special this year, and I'm really looking forward to that. Also, note to anyone who's showing this to their mom for the first time, let her know that the movie's funny after the prologue. Because I told my mom it was a funny movie, put it in. Then we watched the prologue, and I was like, I'm sorry, Mom. Don't worry. It gets funny. Avengers Age of Ultron, I think, is a fine movie. I do have the red case for this. I remember when I first saw this, it was also Second and Charles. They always come in clutch for the rare cases here. But I was like, I need that case right now. And I left with this. It is amazing. I love they put this in a red Blu-ray case. And we're going to talk about a big missed opportunity for a colored case here in a few movies. But, oh, it is so gorgeous. Just look at that red. It is such the perfect shade of red. There's another movie that did a red case. I don't like the red on that case, but whatever. Age of Ultron. The movie that broke Joss Whedon's heart. I feel like, again, I'm going to preface this. Joss Whedon, not a great person. But when it comes to critiquing his work, I'm not going to bring him as a person into it. I feel like he did the best he could with this movie. I feel like he had a lot going against him. A lot of stuff he was forced to put in to set up Phase 3 instead of just making a good Avengers movie. And I think he did the best he could. I think there's too much in this movie. Way too much happening in this movie. He tries to balance it. It feels too crowded with 9 characters, and Infinity War has like 26 characters, and that feels more well-balanced. I think Captain America gets some time to shine in this movie after he was heavily sidelined in the first Avengers movie. Iron Man does take a bit of a backseat, but as usual, he is the catalyst for these events. Thor gets just heavily sidelined. It is disrespectful what they do to my boy in this movie. Hawkeye gets more. Hawkeye is one of the best characters in this movie. That scene with Wanda is great. And speaking of Wanda, this introduces Wanda and Quicksilver. And while Wanda will go on to be one of the best MCU characters, Quicksilver gets murdered by bullets, which the movie explicitly states he is faster than. So that bothers me. Also, Ultron as a villain is great in his first scene. Not really after that, but that's all I'm going to say. That's Avengers Age of Ultron. It's an interesting one, but also, this is one of the movies I always think about rewatching. I trash on it, but at the end of the day, it's one of those, it's like Iron Man 3 and Age of Ultron. I'm always torn on if it's one of those I'm going to slide into my Blu-ray player. Now, AntMan. AntMan is a movie I actually thought was going to suck. I did not see in theaters. I didn't like the trailers. I was like, I don't want to watch this movie. My friends and I were actually going to go to the theater just to talk trash about this movie. That was our goal. We were not looking forward to it at all. And that's not the mindset you want to go into a movie with. And then Civil War was coming out, and I knew Ant-Man was in Civil War, and I was like, all right, I should watch it. So I found it on demand one day. I watched Ant-Man, and I was upset because I did like Ant-Man. We'll talk about my thoughts on the sequel, but the first movie I think is solid also. Look at that case. It's black. It's so cool. It has a 3D copy. I've never actually watched a 3D movie at home besides like one of the Barbie movies when I was little and I was watching it with my sister. So Ant-Man, I feel like a lot of this movie, I talked about this in my review, a lot of this movie can be credited to Edgar Wright because he was originally supposed to direct it before he left and Peyton Reed came in, but the like shrinking effect, the story, the casting, that was basically all Edgar Wright, and Peyton Reed came in last minute to direct it. Do with that information as you will. But yeah, I think Ant-Man is fun. I like how kind of low stakes it is, how it's just a heist movie, and I like Michael Douglas, and I love that he decided to do this movie. That's so cool. And I hope they get like super creative. I feel like Ant-Man and the Wasp made this mistake of having all the cool shrinking stuff in the trailer. So you don't get to see any cool new stuff. I hope Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania saves some of that. But I love the like shrinking stuff and the gimmicks and what they can do. Like Ant-Man has the coolest power set. And I hope that's just utilized. I hope it's much cooler in the third one than it was in the second one. The final fight of this movie is a blast. Plot holes aside, because the movie does not obey its own rules, it's still a very fun movie. All right, my first Steelbook, which I actually didn't get until later, but it's Captain America Civil War. I had the normal Blu-ray for this movie, and I saw the Steelbook, and I was like, I want that. Got rid of the Blu-ray. But it's so cool because it's like, it's embossed, but you would never notice. So Iron Man and Cap's shield go up gradually, and then this groove in the middle is, it's like down a bit. Like, these are bumps, but it's so perfect. And I love, like, the gash. I love the design of this case, and now in the back, you get that shot there. Kind of. Oh, I thought a disc fell out. Inside, also, there's cool art there. Anyway, case aside, Civil War, one of the S-tier Marvel movies. Watch my tier list video for my praise on Civil War. Watch my review. It's 30 minutes long. This movie's so good. I feel like it's fluctuated. When it came out as my favorite MCU movie, that fell a bit, but I feel like it's kind of returned to that like top 5 status. Really, my only issue with it is that I don't understand Wanda's motivations. She blows up people, then she's like, I'm gonna stay confined to the compound, but then she gets mad at Tony for keeping her at the compound even though she wanted to stay there, then she kicks Tony's ass for it. Like, she needs to make up her mind. But Wanda's motives aside, almost everything about this movie is great, and it introduced Black Panther and Spider-Man. And Spider-Man had a hell of a journey in the MCU, didn't he? Feels like that case crunched when I put it down. Alright. Doctor Strange, one of the best solo entries in the MCU. Cannot wait for Multiverse of Madness. And it's funny, he was only introduced 5 years ago, but he has been so integral to the entire MCU. And Benedict Cabbage Patch has said he will keep playing Doctor Strange as long as they give him good material. So you know what? Put him in every movie for all I care. Scott Derrickson made this movie. I like Scott Derrickson as a director. Benedict Cumberbatch, great casting. I think the comics even say if he was in a movie, he would be played by Benedict Cumberbatch. Like, it was meant to be. Caecilius, the Ancient One's the best villain. One of my favorite scenes in the MCU is her death scene when they're out on the balcony and she's just spitting just facts. I could watch that scene over and over and over. I love it so much. The just fun this movie has with the magic stuff and the mirror dimension. If there was one movie I regret not seeing in 3D, it's this movie. This would have been so fun in 3D. If you saw Doctor Strange in 3D, let me know how it was, because I regret not seeing it in 3D. But Doctor Strange, man. Multiverse of Madness is going to be cool. And I love that Sam Raimi is doing superheroes again. Alright, moving on. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, the movie I almost didn't see in theaters. I think I saw it like the last week it was in theaters. I procrastinated on this movie so hard. And then I saw it with my mom and one of my friends, and we loved it so much. Is it better than the first one? That's the 4-year-old debate, isn't it? I will say the villain is better in this one. I think the character writing is even better in this one. If I had to pick, I'd probably say Volume 2 is better. Baby Groot is absolutely adorable. Yondu is the best character. His funeral brings a tear to my eye. Gamora, Nebula, there's so much great character work in this movie. It's like a lot of the characters I feel like didn't get too much to do in the first movie, and then James Gunn gave them everything in the second movie. It was perfect. This movie has so much heart and soul put into it. This is another movie that I'm like, man, I kind of want to rewatch this one. Both Guardians. Sometimes I'll just do both Guardians back to back, especially because this one only takes place a few months after the first one. It also does tease Adam Warlock, who we're finally going to be seeing next year after it has been so many years since they teased Adam Warlock. Doctor Strange was introduced 6 years ago, not 4. That just hit me. Holy crap. It's been a long time. Oh man, I love this movie so much. Everything except the Sovereign I like. This also, I just reviewed this movie. I just dropped my review of this movie a couple days ago. Go watch it. It's a nice video. Alright. Spider-Man Homecoming. Here we go. Talk about MCU Spider-Man. I actually think he's good in this movie. I actually do like Spider-Man Homecoming. Far From Home is the one I don't like. I like Spider-Man Homecoming though. And just talk about this case for a sec. The back of this case is the coolest thing I've ever seen. So it's a normal case, but if you flip it around, the words are backwards. You have to put it upside down. That's so cool. I love this case so much. Big issue with this movie, of course, the over-reliance on Iron Man. There's too much Iron Man or Iron Man-related stuff in this movie. Vulture is the best Iron Man villain we've ever gotten. And in terms of the movie's story, the suit needs to have tech, but it has too much stuff going on. That's my issue with Homecoming. Those are like my two big issues with Homecoming. But Vulture is one of the best MCU villains. All Iron Man jokes aside, Vulture is one of the best MCU villains. And last thing, this is my depression movie. Whenever I am like not feeling it, or I'm like depressed or whatever, I slide in Homecoming and I cheer up. So thank you, Sony, for making me a depression movie. Also, I feel like a movie that should be a depression movie, but for some reason isn't. Thor Ragnarok is a hell of a movie. Taika Waititi did really good with this movie, but it's not perfect. It's not my favorite of the Thor trilogy. I think the movie doesn't know when to stop making jokes. There's so many scenes. Like, this is a story about the death of Asgard and the death of gods. That's what Ragnarok translates to, but instead it's stand-up comedy, and it doesn't know when it needs to stop joking around, and I feel like almost every character in this movie has the exact same humor style. It was funny. My favorite scenes in this movie aren't funny. The scene in the elevator with Thor and Loki is my favorite scene. The scene of Thor embracing his full powers. One of my favorite scenes. My phone keeps blowing up. Sorry if you're getting the echo of that, because it's sitting on a music stand right now. But yeah, the best scene. This movie has some amazing scenes, and there's scenes that don't have jokes. My biggest issue with this movie is actually an issue I have with Infinity War and Endgame, and that's that everything about this movie is undone to the point that this is the most irrelevant Phase 3 movie. You don't need to watch Ragnarok because nothing in Ragnarok ends up mattering. Fight between Thor and Hulk is pretty cool. Alright, moving on here. Black Panther. Now, I do have the Steelbook. I had the standard Blu-ray, but just the, like, artwork thing, I ended up picking the Steelbook at some point. I was like, I'm keeping this. I still have my second copy of Black Panther, and you guys will see momentarily what I'm doing with that. But the back cover's cool also. Like, just this whole Steelbook is cool. I love it so much. Also, the spine has, like, the Wakandan texturing. They put so much thought and effort into this. And then inside, it's kind of just all the characters there, overlooking Wakanda. Black Panther as a movie, though, feels like 2 movies, because halfway through, after Claw dies and Killmonger comes onto the scene, it feels like a completely different movie. But Ryan Coogler did pretty well with this movie. I really do like it. CGI is unforgivably bad in this movie. I'm upset that Michael B. Jordan didn't get any sort of Oscar nomination for Killmonger. I know people like to throw that around because they think superhero movies are the greatest things of all time. They're like, how come Thor the Dark World didn't get an Oscar nomination? But I genuinely mean when I say this, that Michael B. Jordan gave one of the best performances of 2018, and I wish he got some sort of awards recognition. But he didn't. Instead, they gave the movie a Best Picture nomination, which it didn't deserve. Again, though, that CGI is just straight booty cheeks. Good old Avengers Infinity War. Amazing movie right here. And you know what's funny about this case? So this is like the Target exclusive. So here's what it does, right? You open it, and it unfolds like that. Like, that's pretty cool, right? But here's the interesting thing. This cover has Thanos on the bottom, but the slip cover, don't worry, I got this. On the slip cover, Thanos is nowhere to be found on either the front or the back. He's just not there. Even though he's the main character of the movie. Thanos is the main character of Infinity War. I love Infinity War so much. As I was saying when I talked about Age of Ultron, the Russos figured out how to balance this many characters. I think that's every character in the movie besides Thanos, basically. Every, like, main character. I mean, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12... 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. I count 23 people just on the cover. And that's just what they would consider your main, like, superhero lineup. And they figured out a way to balance them. Sure, some get sidelined, like Cap's barely in this movie, but the way they make up for it is by making Cap one of the main players in Avengers Endgame. They figured out how to balance it. Again, my issues, they undo everything with Ragnarok. Hulk is an absolute joke in this movie. But it's so thrilling, and it's a 2.5-hour movie, but it feels like it's an hour and a half. That's how well-paced and fast this movie goes. Thanos, of course, the best MCU villain. Some of the best fights. That whole fight on Titan is great. And then the way it culminates in Iron Man versus Thanos. And the air got sucked out of the room. You could hear a pin drop the moment Tony Stark got stabbed. Who actually thought he was going to survive that fight? Because I didn't. I was like, oh, this is where we lose Iron Man. Man, the dude made Thanos bleed. He's so cool. All right, one of the worst movies in the MCU, what most people consider to be the absolute worst movie in the MCU. Ant-Man and the Wasp. Why do they consider that? Because this movie is boring as hell. The story is boring. The villain is boring. The main hero is boring and stupid in this movie. The color grading is boring. The dialogue is boring. The main plot is boring. Just basically everything about this movie is boring. It's not particularly great. And it's funny. People who wrote this wrote No Way Home. That's all I'm going to say about that. Alright, my least favorite movie in the MCU. I'm going to put an image up on screen real fast. I did not send this tweet because I was like, that's kind of mean. I don't want Brie Larson to see this. But that was a little exchange on Twitter there. That was pretty fun. It's funny, I have the Steelbook for Captain Marvel, but I hate Captain Marvel. There's the front. You get Goose sitting there on the side there. And then here's the back. I wish the back was the front. That would be really cool. And then there's the spine. But yeah, the Steelbook just looks so cool that I was like, I'm gonna keep this even though I don't like the movie because I just love this Steelbook so much. And okay, I do have to pop the discs out. Real fast because the inside little art here, like, that's just really cool. Make sure that's in the shot there. Yeah, that's like, it's just, they did such a good job with this this Steelbook. You know what's funny? The first movie sucked so hard They took Captain Marvel's name off her own sequel. It's called The Marvels now. It's a team-up, not a Captain Marvel solo movie. We'll see how that movie goes. I'm not particularly interested in that movie, but we'll see how it goes. That does come out this year. Yeah, I mean, Captain Marvel does almost everything wrong. The central hero is the worst hero in the MCU. Talos is the only cool character. Yon-Rogg, the actual villain, is terrible. Nick Fury is reduced to a joke. A cat scratches his eye out, and for some reason, the writers, the directors, the editors, the VFX artists, the producers, Kevin Feige himself looked at that and were like, yeah, we can send that scene to theaters. I don't agree with that. I don't know why no one stepped in to say that was just the dumbest decision they had ever made. Honestly, Fury didn't even need to lose his eye in this movie. I feel like Fury was a much cooler character when we knew nothing about him and he was just a mystery. But instead they made him a joke. And every guy in this movie is either stupid or made into a joke. It is... Here's my thing on it, right? A lot of people will be like, so here's one of the stupidest arguments I've ever heard, is when people say that a guy not liking a movie about women is just because the movie is not geared towards them. That's not true! Wonder Woman is I love Wonder Woman. I rewatch Wonder Woman pretty frequently. I really like that movie. Because Wonder Woman is just a movie about a superhero. It's not trying to do the whole go woke or go broke thing, right? It's just trying to be a good movie that just so happens to be about a female superhero. If Wonder Woman was about a guy, if it was Wonder Man, the movie would still be just as good, right? The gender of the character, sure, they use it in a few scenes to be like, that's a woman. But I think it works, especially in the context of the movie. But Captain Marvel, the tagline for this movie is literally discover what makes her a hero, and the her changes to hero. It is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. Here's how I've put it to people. I say the reason I don't like Captain Marvel is because it feels like the movie that exists to raise up one group of people while putting the rest down. Now, as a straight white man, I don't want to watch a movie that exists to tell me I am a piece of shit. Because that's what Captain Marvel does. Every guy in this movie is either a creep or a dipshit. And the only intelligent characters in the movie are the women. Not that that's like an issue, but the movie it's not even subtle about that fact. They're pushing it down your throat. They even say at one point, they have someone explicitly say to Carol Danvers that it's called a cockpit for a reason. Alright, I'm done talking about Captain Marvel. It's pissing me off. Avengers Endgame. Avengers Endgame is an interesting movie, because I feel like the third act of Avengers Endgame really makes up for how mediocre the first and second act are. The first act, it starts out really strong. The opening 20 minutes of this movie are phenomenal. Everything from the prologue all the way to murdering Thanos are great. Then we have the 5-year time jump, and then we start to see some issues. Fat Thor, Professor Hulk, the rat that gets Ant-Man out of the quantum realm. There's a lot of things the movie does wrong. I also feel like the time heist, for the most part, it exists to be a retrospective through the MCU, but it doesn't feel like there's any stakes in it outside of the Tony and Cap part. Like, Nebula gets captured, yada yada, that's all that. But, I don't know, I don't really feel anything there. Yeah, I don't know. It's a very complicated movie. I do love it. It's a good movie. But then the third act comes in, and it is just A+ superhero movie content. That's cool. I'm not a fan of this case, though. I kind of wish I got the 4K of this movie and not this version. So this version, this poster's not great. I don't like the white. I also wish they would just release the movie with the characters, how they look in the movie, because everyone who wanted to not get spoiled for Endgame saw Endgame in theaters, so it's okay to not, hide the spoilers on the Blu-ray case. Thor doesn't look like that in the movie. Banner doesn't look like that in the movie. Captain Marvel doesn't look like that in the movie. That's the Mark 50, by the way, not the Mark 85 on Iron Man. I feel like they could have just done so much more. Also, the back's not that great. It's just like the little Thanos promotional still photoshopped on top of that little piece of concept art there. But when we open it, it gets much better, though, right? Because we get the character posters for all 6 main Avengers here. So that's nice. But let me tell you something that annoys me. The reason I picked this is because they said it comes with this little book that's a look back at the MCU. So I was reading through it and I realized it's a look back at only Iron Man, not the MCU. It is such a disappointing release. I don't like it. I wanted to get that off my chest. Alright, it's Avengers Endgame. Also, a video coming soon on what moment was better, Portals or all 3 Spider-Men together. Be talking about that here pretty soon. This is a pain to get back in the case. Okay. This isn't the worst MCU movie, but it's probably the one that pisses me off the most. Spider-Man Far From Home is the worst Spider-Man movie of all time. This slipcover's weird. Actually, no, the slipcover's fine. I do like the slipcover, actually. I was thinking of something else. No, the slipcover looks cool. It's barely got Mysterio in the back there. In the back, we have that, and this is literally, if you could sum up my issues with this movie in one image, BAM! Then we open the case up, and it's a perfect representation of the movie, because this sucks. This is a terrible case. Like, actually awful. Yeah, my issues with Far From Home, it's not a Spider-Man movie. It's really not. Mysterio is not a Spider-Man villain in any way. He has no connection to Peter Parker. He just wants to get back at Iron Man, but since Iron Man's dead, Spidey steps up to kick Mysterio's ass. Mysterio starts out cool, then after the plot twist, he's just, nah. Like, his crew is literally made up of people. William Ginteriva is from the first Iron Man movie. It's not a Spider-Man movie. It's a goddamn Iron Man movie. Okay, let's move on to Phase 4. So, we get to start this off with 3 fun little Blu-rays here. So these first 3 that I'm going to talk about, these are fan-made covers because Disney's not releasing the Disney Plus shows on Blu-ray, but since I wanted something in my collection, I made some custom covers here. They're not sized perfectly, but I just look at the spines, not the front, so who actually cares? We have my little WandaVision custom here, got the poster, there's your spine, and then the back, which I'm really proud of. The back came out really well. I did end up changing the way I designed the backs after this movie. But we open it up, Annabelle Creation. Because I have 2 copies of Annabelle Creation. Who needs 2 copies of Annabelle Creation? Hell, you barely even need 1 copy of Annabelle Creation. But there we go, WandaVision, a show that is really great for 8 episodes and drops the ball in its finale, but still a great show nonetheless. And it made Wanda most people's favorite MCU character. Seeing the Multiverse of Madness trailer in theaters opening night of Spider-Man, the 2 cheers for the post-credit scene came from Wanda. So if that doesn't say something about what WandaVision did for her character, I don't know what does. Moving on, we have The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which is a worse show. Also, this printed weird because the printer was running out of ink, so it made it really dark. But there's the back of that. Some little pictures there. John Walker, best character introduced in Phase 4 so far. I love that character so damn much. He's great. Oh yeah, there's the spine, by the way. And we open this one up where we have Black Panther. There's my second copy of Black Panther being put to good use there. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I feel like it doesn't justify its existence. Because Endgame ends with Sam being yeah, I'll be Cap. And then Falcon and the Winter Soldier ends with Sam saying he'll be Cap. I feel like you could just not watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier and you don't lose anything. It feels like a show that doesn't justify its existence. Hopefully it does at some point in the future. This is an amazing 2.5-hour movie put into a 5-hour show. Because if you take out all the filler, there's a great movie you can release theatrically in this show, but they decided to make it a show. It really should have been a movie. All right, next show, I think one of the best things in Phase 4 so far. We got Loki here. There's my Loki custom. This is the one that's really sized wrong. It's so small. But hey, the length is right, so it makes the spine work. And I actually got to put first season, because we are getting a second Loki season. There's the back with my 2 favorite characters from the show right there. We got Sylvie and Mobius. I really wanted to highlight them, because they're cool characters. Loki, I mean, come on, it's great. It's a really good show. It is thrilling, it's really mysterious, really eerie. It was fun, like, the week-to-week watch for that. Like, that was the show that actually justified being week to week. I remember I would turn it off, I'd be like, I want the next episode now, especially after episode 4, when Loki and Mobius both got pruned. I think a lot issues people have with the show is they say that, like, halfway through it goes from being a TVA mystery thriller to a manhunt for Kang the Conqueror. And while I understand that criticism, it's not an issue I have with the show. I have watched through twice on this show now, and it's even better the second time. This is a really good show. Alright, we only got 2 things left here. This video is going to come to an end. It's kind of bittersweet. Black Widow, which is also in a red case. I picked it because it's a red case, but if I can find Age of Ultron, it is a different shade of red. Kind of. It's a lighter red. I don't know how I feel about it. I feel like it's kind of an ugly red. But I mean, I guess it works for the aesthetic here. The cover's cool, mainly because red and black is the coolest color combination. Black Widow's very frustrating, because Black Widow has so many amazing ideas and so many cool themes and messages that it somehow drops the ball on doing all of them. It might be the worst offender of ill-timed jokes. Like, Yelena is explaining how she went through an involuntary surgery and really had her body taken away from her, but for some reason they have her tell it in a comedic sense. I don't get it. There's this scene with Yelena and Red Guardian where they're bonding, father and daughter, and it was one of the best scenes in the movie. But then immediately, they shoot Red Guardian with like 20 tranquilizers because they think that'll be really funny, and he falls to the ground. And I didn't laugh at all, and they really wanted me to, because it's ill-timed jokes aren't funny, right? Perfectly written and perfectly paced jokes work. But completely undercutting everything for the sake of a joke, the joke falls flat, right? What they did to Taskmaster is unforgivable. Having the gender swap I'm fine with, but like, Taskmaster doesn't talk. Taskmaster talks all the time in the comics, but they muted Taskmaster. Any of them, she never mirrored. The only time she ever mirrored the move was the first fight with Black Widow, and it's barely noticeable. Every other time, she just did a random MCU character's moveset, just so that way we would do the Leonardo DiCaprio meme, but it doesn't work. Taskmaster is one of the best villains. Taskmaster was the main reason I was excited for this movie. And Taskmaster was the biggest disappointment of this movie. Oh yeah, Hawkeye is a better send-off to Black Widow than her solo movie is supposed to be a send-off is. It's also a movie that should have come out 5 years before it did. It should have come out right after Civil War. Last thing in the collection for now, ShangChi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. This is one of the best solo movies since the original Iron Man. It is so good. Simu Liu is perfect as Shang-Chi. I can't wait to see where he's going to pop up next. He's going to be an Avenger. That's going to be badass. He's also immortal. Like, they changed his power set. I couldn't care less if they changed his power set. Him having the 10 rings is the coolest thing. That's why I picked this cover. The main poster sucked, but him with the 10 rings is a much cooler poster. So I was like, yeah, I vibe with that. I'm rocking with that. I think it would have been cool, though, if the steelbook for this movie was Shang-Chi on this side and Wenwu on that side, and when you opened it up on the spine was where the rings connected. Yo, they should have hired me to do the graphic design for these covers. That would have been awesome. Wenwu, of course, the best. How have I not mentioned Wenwu right off the bat? The best MCU villain, arguably better than Thanos. It's this cool story. Like, it has dragons and fantasy elements, but it's just about family. Dominic Toretto would love it. The choreography in this movie is amazing. Destin Daniel Cretton and that whole team really tried to do the best they could to make the great action, and they did the best. The fights in this movie are great. The final fight between Shang-Chi and his dad being my absolute favorite. We did it, guys! There's 4 Blu-rays missing. What If and Hawkeye, I have not yet printed custom covers for. I'm waiting. I'm gonna utilize the printer at my school instead of at my house. Kind of cheat the system in a way. Also, it has better print quality at the school, so I'm definitely doing that. Eternals isn't out on Blu-ray for another month, and there's no word on when we're getting the No Way Home Blu-ray, so I'm missing those 4. But I'm looking forward to having those 4, especially Spider-Man. I cannot wait to watch Spider-Man at home. That's gonna be cool. Boom, we're done. So, what's your favorite of like the MCU Blu-rays? Do you have a personal favorite? Like, if I had to pick one that I look at and I just love it, I will tell you what they are. It is either the Age of Ultron case or the Civil War case. These are so nice. I love both of those. And some of your favorite MCU movies, shows, whatever, just share your thoughts. I don't even care what you say. Just tell me what you had for breakfast. I don't give a shit. But there you guys go. There's my MCU collection video. Let me know your thoughts on anything down in the comments below. Also, leave a like on this video, subscribe, click on the bell icon to receive all notifications from the MCU HQ. That's going to be it. Have a great day, guys.